Your time is 7 p.m. and you're watching Newsplus right here on ZTN Prime, channel 294 on DSTV. My name is Wadzanai Sansole. Now it's time to catch you up on all the things that have been happening around you this evening. Your headlines. The Zimbabwe government and the private sector have rallied support for flood victims in Malawi following devastating floods that displaced thousands across that country late last year. Treasury has clarified the scope of the digital services withholding tax following confusion over its application on electronic payments. Now that story coming up in business. And in our Crime Watch, we give you an update on jailed businessmen Mike Chimombe and Moses Mpofu, who are keeping their fingers crossed after their application for leave to appeal against conviction and sentence has been deferred. Our correspondent Lato Nyangu, who was at High Court, is on standby with details. Excitement is in the air as cricket fans look forward to the Under-19 Men's Cricket World Cup to be played in Harare and Bulawayo next week. Now stay tuned for that story and more in sport. It is a good evening. Thank you very much for choosing to watch this bulletin. We now take a closer look at the stories making the headlines. Zimbabwe has stepped forward in solidarity with Malawi following devastating floods that displaced thousands across the country late last year. Now, Vice President Kembo Mohadi today presided over a high-level resource mobilization ceremony in Harare, rallying government and the private sector to support flood victims across 13 Malawian districts. Now, Iben Mabunda gives us more.
Vice President Kemba Mohadi presided over a high-level resource mobilization ceremony in Harare aimed at supporting Malawi's flood victims following devastating rains that swept across the country between the 27th and the 28th of December 2025. More than 32,000 people from over 9,000 households were displaced after persistent heavy rains triggered widespread flooding across 13 districts, including Blantyre and Lilongwe.
This response was made possible through the combined efforts of government of Zimbabwe and the private sector. This intervention reflects not only our humanitarian values, but also our commitment to strengthening bilateral relations and promoting people-centered diplomacy.
Zimbabwe's response saw the government donating 1,000 metric tons of grain, while the private sector also provided complementary support, underscoring Harare's commitment to regional solidarity amid growing climate-related disasters.
This selfless act of kindness demonstrates the strong bonds of friendship and cooperation between our two nations. We also acknowledge the challenges Zimbabwe faces, but you have generously shared what you have to help alleviate the suffering of our people.
Bilateral relations between Zimbabwe and Malawi date back to the liberation struggle and the era of the Federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland, laying a foundation for cooperation that continues to this day. The initiative was coordinated through ZimAid, Zimbabwe's principal framework for mobilizing humanitarian assistance in response to regional crises.
Our corporate partners and stakeholders, captains of industry, ladies and gentlemen, Honorable Vice President.
The private sector also played a critical role, contributing essential supplies and logistics support to ensure aid reaches affected communities efficiently. Among notable contributions are 20 tons of grain from the Grain Millers Association of Zimbabwe, clothing donations, animal feed from Feedmix, transport and fuel from the Transporters Association of Zimbabwe, and 700 blankets from Pazabasta.
We have donated blankets. This whole load of blankets has been donated by Pazabasta. We have got a feeling of Ubuntu. Malawians, Zimbabweans, Africans, we are one people.
The donations by Zimbabwe to Malawi are a demonstration of the Ubuntu concept of brotherhood among Africans, and the donations will go a long way in assisting the victims of the floods that have ravaged across Malawi. Reporting for ZTN Prime, I'm Ibn Mabunda, Monomotapa, Harare.
Now, in other news, Treasury has moved to clarify the scope of the digital services withholding tax amid growing confusion over its application on electronic payments. And in a statement, the Ministry of Finance stressed that the tax does not apply to imported goods, which remain subject to customs duty and other statutory taxes at the point of entry into Zimbabwe. Now, Treasury says the digital services withholding tax is strictly limited to payments for imported digital services, including digital streaming and online content services, e-hailing and platform-based service fees, online advertising services, as well as satellite-based and other cross-border digital access services. Now, the ministry further clarified that taxpayers already accounting for VAT on imported services are not liable for the digital services withholding tax. Now, I noted that applying both would amount to double taxation. We are now joined live by our business correspondent, Ibn Mabunda, for clarity on the subject. Ibn, good evening. Help us make sense of this statement.
Good evening, Wadzanai. The communique is bringing clarity to the confines of the digital services with the holding tax, which are specific to about 4 or 5 categories. The first one being streaming services. For example, you've got iTunes as well as Netflix that are part and parcel of that category, among others. The second one is the e-hailing, where you've got InDrive and Bolt, which have been dominant in Zimbabwe. You also then move on to online ads such as Google ads, Facebook adverts, and so forth and so on. The fourth element would come in where, of course, the provision of satellite-based services such as Starlink, among other service providers, as well as other categories of the provision of digital services within Zimbabwean borders that are, of course, being remotely provided by digital service providers that are operating globally but have a reach here in Zimbabwe. So that's where the clarity is. But also within this particular communique is the exclusion of other services as well as goods. For example, the importation of vehicles through, for illustrative purposes, platforms such as Be Forward. These still have to pay taxes, customs, and so forth when they enter Zimbabwe. So this digital services withholding tax is not applicable where those kind of products are concerned.
And what about communication from the banks, which the minister says will be clarified?
Again, communications that come from different banks indicating that the 15% tax is now applicable on all Visa and MasterCard payments across users here in Zimbabwe, be it at the point of travel or when they make payments from Zimbabwe. However, the communique is making it clear that this 15% tax is applicable specifically when there is payment for the provision of digital services and does not apply to instances where you are on a travel mission, say in South Africa or in the UK, and you're paying for food at a restaurant. The 15% is not applicable in that particular instance. But if you're making a payment for other digital services through your Visa card or your MasterCard, that is when that tax becomes applicable. And the Treasury is saying that they are getting into conversations with banks to ensure that there is clarity where that specific subject is concerned.
Thank you very much, Ibn, for sharing insight on the digital services withholding tax. Now, moving on, jailed businessmen Mike Chimombe and Moses Mpofu can only keep their fingers crossed after High Court Judge Justice Pisirai Kwenda deferred a ruling in their application for leave to appeal against conviction and sentence. Our correspondent Lato Nyangu was at the High Court.
The duo launched the application before Justice Pisirai Kwenda, who reserved the judgment and promised to deliver it in due course without undue delay. This is a fresh attempt for freedom by the duo since their conviction of defrauding the government of over 7 million in the presidential gold person scheme. They were sentenced to 12 and 15 years respectively. Represented by Advocate Tapson Dretero and Professor Love Momaduk, Mpofu and Chimombe argue that the High Court's decision to convict them was riddled with legal errors. They feel they have good prospects of success. In the event they are not successful, the law provides for them to also go to the Supreme Court and appeal against refusal to grant leave of appeal against the decision.
We've done applications seeking the leave of the High Court for it to permit us to appeal against the decision of the court on both the issue of conviction and also on the issue of sentence. So the applications are now pending for the court and we'll have to hear from the court. But we believe we've got very good high prospects of succeeding to convince the court that it must permit our clients to challenge the decision of the High Court in the Supreme Court.
Professor Love Momaduk, representing Mike Chimombe, expresses confidence in being granted permission, stating that it is simply an order of the court and should be granted.
The general principle in our constitution, if you read section 70, subsection 5 of our constitution, it contemplates that ordinarily two courts must be involved. You have the court that convicts, tries and convicts, then a person must be given a chance to approach a higher court. And as things currently stand, if you are convicted, tried and convicted by the magistrates court, you have an automatic right to appeal to the High Court. There is no requirement that you apply for leave.
Now the duo eagerly await the outcome in one of the country's high-profile fraud cases. Latuo Nyangu for Certain Prime at the High Court of Zimbabwe.
Coming up on Newsplus shortly after the break, government on high alert as fall armyworm outbreak looms.
We're kicking your year off in all her glory with more because we got you.
You get it?
You know that. We got kicks. We got scores. We got action. We got roars.
It's my specialty.
We got drama. We got fun. We got more for everyone with an upgrade on us just for you. More channels, more shows, more reasons to stay.
We got you.
DSTV, we got you all the way.
This is Newsplus coming to you live from Harare. Now, government has urged farmers to remain vigilant against pests and diseases, warning that persistent heavy rains are creating favorable breeding conditions for fall armyworm, which has already affected some parts of the country. And the call was made during a crop assessment tour by the Ministry of Agriculture in Mashonaland Central Province, where farmers were encouraged to practice good agronomic management to enable early detection and timely control of pests and diseases.
In Mashonaland Central Province, maize planting is officially closed after the province surpassed its target of 270,000 hectares. The Provincial Agricultural Director, Mishek Chitokomere, said farmers growing ultra-early maturing varieties are finalizing planting, while those focusing on small grains have already established different crop varieties. Chitokomere noted that planting operations in Guruve faced disruptions due to security concerns, which were caused by suspected serial killer Eni Mozwitwa, who was terrorizing the district. This forced some farmers to remain indoors, delaying farming activities.
And also in the province we have a district that is Guruve, which was affected by, I don't know what I can call this, almost a terrorist like who was murdering people in Guruve. So our staff and even farmers were quite afraid to go and do their normal duties in the fields. And there was a lot of under-reporting there because even our staff were afraid because the guy was very cruel.
Despite the challenges, stakeholders across the district are intensifying crop monitoring as the summer season progresses, with early indications pointing to a potentially good harvest. The Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture, Professor Obed Jiri, commended farmers in the district for exceeding production targets during the summer cropping season.
mera muchekechera vakanonokawo zvishoma vechibage chakutosvikawo pachakusvida kufertilizer yepamusoro saka tinozvitenda izvozvo.
Professor Jiri warned that continuous heavy rains increase the risk of fall armyworm outbreaks and urged farmers to begin regular scouting to detect infestations early and limit crop losses. He also encouraged farmers to spread risk by diversifying their cropping systems through the inclusion of traditional grains and legumes.
Mvura iri kunaya zvakanyanya munzvimbo dzakawanda, zvirwere nezvipukanana zviya zvinobva zvawanda. Tinoona isusu kuti fall armyworm riya gonye riya rine kawai pamusoro paro rakuwanda richisumuka. Tinoda kuti varimi vapinde muminda yavo vachiita yatinoti scout, vachitarisa mbeu, vachiita kuti vakasike kuona zvipukanana zvinodya mbeu dzavo.
As the season advances, consistent crop monitoring, improved agronomic practices, and strong institutional support remains key to sustaining productivity and strengthening the national food security. For ZTM Prime, I am Mashutu Mambo in Mazoe.
Now, from that story on agriculture, we now shift the focus to education. Government has expressed readiness and promised compliance by all stakeholders ahead of schools opening on January 13. This was revealed by the Minister of Primary and Secondary Education, Dr. Torerai Moyo, who is expected to travel through the 10 provinces starting on Monday, monitoring the situation in all the schools. And he will be in Manicaland on Monday before proceeding to other provinces.
Because the year is very short. As you are aware, grade 7 examinations are starting in September. So there is no time to waste. We expect that there is a lot of professionalism exhibited by our teachers. And any teacher who will be found wanting, who will be found without the schemes of work, will be dealt with severely. People have known me to be one who moves around in schools looking at schemes of work, record of marks, and that is what I will be doing on Tuesday. So by Monday I'll be in Manicaland, Tuesday I'll be in Buhera district, monitoring the situation, looking at visiting schools to ensure that the term begins on a very high note.
Meanwhile, government has directed the Tertiary Education Service Council to urgently address critical staffing gaps in tertiary institutions, with particular focus on leadership and science, technology, engineering, and mathematics posts. Now, the Deputy Minister of Higher and Tertiary Education, Smelisiwe Sibanda, made the call during the Council's 5-year strategic planning workshop, where it is formulating its 5-year strategic plan. And he said failure to fill key posts continues to affect productivity, innovation, and also effective service delivery in the tertiary education sector.
The leadership gaps in our tertiary education institutions must be addressed decisively to unlock that innovation potential, drive institutional productivity, and ensure governance stability. These include posts of principal, vice principals, registrar, bursar, librarian, and internal auditor. That is in line with Manpower Planning and Development Act, Chapter 2802, that is Section 6A.
Now, at this same workshop, the Deputy Minister emphasized the need for a clear and practical 5-year strategic plan to guide the work of the Tertiary Education Services Council. And he said the plan should set measurable targets that strengthen institutional governance and also improve staff welfare across tertiary education institutions.
It's imperative that staff conditions of service and staff development opportunities, including local and international workshops and seminars, are equitably accessible to both public and private tertiary education institutions, with deliberate rotation to ensure broad participation. We are saying all state institutions and the private institutions are meant to develop human capital for our country. Therefore, if there are certain trainings that are supposed to be done, they must cut across.
Let's now take a look at our crime update. Police in Beitbridge today destroyed a total of 24 pressure boats, which they recovered from smugglers moving goods between Zimbabwe and South Africa through illegal crossing points on the Limpopo River. Now, the smuggling of goods is rife along the Zimbabwe-South Africa border, and police say those arrested have been taken to the courts while others escaped.
We are destroying some of the pressure boats that we recovered from the Limpopo River banks. They are used by smugglers as they cross into South Africa and back to Zimbabwe along the Limpopo. You are aware that we've got various illegal crossing points, and we managed to intercept some of these smugglers, and we arrested some of them, but it was unfortunate that some of them, they managed to run away, leaving behind these boats that we are banning today. Those whom we arrested, we took them to the courts, and some of the cases they were finalized, and some of them are still pending in the courts.
Now, coming up in business, RBZ unveils its 5-year plan to strengthen currency stability and monetary policy. The Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe has launched its 2026 to 2030 strategic plan, focusing on strengthening currency stability, enhancing monetary policy credibility, and also advancing central bank reforms. And the plan builds on progress made since the introduction of the ZiG currency in 2024, and it supports preparations for a future monocurrency regime. And key priorities include consolidating price and exchange rate stability, increasing reserve buffers, modernizing monetary policy, deepening financial markets, and strengthening financial sector oversight. Now, the strategy also emphasizes digitalization, institutional sustainability, and closer alignment with government's broader economic development agenda. Now, still on business, Premier Service Holders, the former parent company of Premier Service Medical Aid Society, PISMAS, and Premier Service Medical Investments, has been placed under voluntary liquidation. And in a court application filed by Mawere Sibanda commercial lawyers, the company's legal representatives said the move was initiated in terms of Section 5(1)(a) of the Insolvency Act, which allows a company to wind up its affairs after passing a formal resolution, provided there are no legal or contractual obstacles. And the application states that Premier Service Holdings resolved to liquidate and faces no regulatory or legal impediments to the decision. And the company's financial position deteriorated sharply in August 2022 after the Ministry of Health and Childcare ordered it to stop collecting management fees from medical aid subscribers and sees interference in the operations of PISMAS and PSMI. And as a result of the regulatory directives, the company's operations became unsustainable, leaving it unable to generate income or continue functioning. Coming up is entertainment. American reel creator IShowSpeed is currently in Zimbabwe, and it seems like he hit it off with the Zimbabweans. Thousands gathered in Harare, and many more thousands were glued to his channel and live streaming, catching up with what he's been up to. Now, he met his Zimbabwean lookalike superstar Jani at Mbare Art Space and even learned some Mbira skills from Hope Masike and Silent Ngo when they performed at the Mbuyane statue in the CBD. And earlier, crowds went wild for him at the Trobablis interchange when he participated in an interesting Thai challenge. Now, this visit has put Zimbabwe on the map. Coming up is sport.
This is AFCON, my friend. Everything is a competition.
everything.
So here they come for the opening game, and away we are here at the African Cup of Nations.
Join our family meeting from the 21st of December to the 18th of January. Purchase a decoder for $30. AFCON 2025, live on SuperSport.
Cricket fans in Harare have expressed excitement over the ICC Under-19 Men's Cricket World Cup, which will be played at 2 venues in the capital starting next week. Now, Zimbabwe is co-hosting the Global Showcase with Harare Sports Club and Takashinga Cricket Club being the host venues in Harare, while Queen's Sports Club in Bulawayo will also host matches. Now, cricket fans who spoke to ZTN during the ICC Under-19 Men's Trophy Tour today said they are looking forward to seeing some of the best young players in their own backyard.
Chatiri kunyanya kutarisira ndechekuti tiri kushandisa nhandare dzedu dzemuno muZimbabwe ende mafans achanga aripo tichange tiripo isi vanhu tichita sei tichivakurudzira. Saka chatiri kunyanya kuda kwavari ndechekuti trophy ngaisare muno muZimbabwe tigowanawo tichifara tichipembera kutiwo tazotorawo mukombe weUnder 19.
Hai tinavele sireti onwenziyo ende sikhangele World Cup sibesimelele kusukela besitshela last year ukuthi kule World Cup lapha sibesimelele and thina bafana sizaba supporter yonke indlela konke esikhayelayo thina ukuthi bona bedlale kahle. Bangena ku Super 12 I think thina sabe sijabule kakhulu, ku Super 6 sabe sijabule kakhulu. Ngoba siyakwazi ukuthi amanye amaqembu eIndia nabo Pakistan no England abangani baphezulu wethu. Kodwa Super 6 asabe sijabule kakhulu njengamafans.
Sikutasela ukuthi vanhu awe vakawanda ku ground vasapoti vakomana vachitamba Under 19 yatamba World Cup yawo. Tinokudzira vanhu vese vaine uwande hwawo vasapoti vakomana.
Now, with the tournament starting next week, ZC marketing manager Tinotenda Mawoyo said everything is in place for a successful tournament.
I think we're very ready. It's been a long time coming, so a year plus in planning, and now we're obviously in the final stages. It's 2 minutes to 12 at the moment, but I think the organization's been good, and I think this trophy parade just leading into the arrival of the remainder of the teams to come has also been very good. So looking forward to it, very, very excited. In terms of the team, I think they've had great preps over the last 18 months. They've just gone into the final yesterday, of course, which they lost to Pakistan in the Tri-Series, Youth Tri-Series, but we've seen some good performances in there. So with home support, which is why we're urging everybody to come through, home conditions, we really hope that we put in a very good performance throughout the tournament. Yeah, I think that's massive. Takashinga obviously got its first opportunity as an international venue in 2023, and I think if you look at the upgrades that have been at Takashinga, they've been fantastic. So lots of work has gone into Takashinga for a community ground where children can identify with cricketers that come out of there, and of course it's a club that is brought about so many Zimbabwean captains, Hamilton Masakadza, Prosper Utseya, Elton Chigumbura, who's the coach of this team. So yeah, I'm really excited about Takashinga and can't wait to be there for that first game against Scotland.
And that's a wrap on Newsplus this Wednesday evening with me, Wadzanai Sansole. I absolutely appreciate your time. Have a good night.
Catch exclusive interviews every weekday for candid, exciting and thought-provoking conversations with your host, Erika Ndoro.
We talk about arts, we can talk about sports.